And we did the same thing, typical greeting, namaste. And then he said to us, sit. And we looked at one another, we said, we've been sitting for 17 hours, no thank you, we just want to get our gear. Your paperwork is not ready. You must come back at 2:30 this afternoon. So out we went. And we came at 2:30, this time we were polite, we knocked on the door, namaste, namaste, sit. This time we sat. And then he called for tea. Tea? No, thank you, we don't have time for tea, we just want to get our gear. Oh, you must come back tomorrow morning, your paperwork is still not ready. Any of you know that one? So out we went, and we came, out we went, and we came. It seemed like the harder we pushed to get our gear, the calmer he became. After 7 days, we realized we must be doing something wrong. What we realized is we didn't quite understand what was expected of us. Again, how many of you get so caught up in your busyness of business that you forget to sit down and drink tea with people? Isn't that how we learn about one another? Isn't that how we learn about how we are going to partner with other people? How many of you know the golden rule? What is it? Do unto others as you would have them do unto you. It's a great rule. However, it does not necessarily apply in this very diverse global environment that we are living in today. Do unto others as they would have you do unto them is perhaps a better situation to live by. Because don't we all have different goals, values, beliefs, needs? All of us have different solutions. All of us have different ways to partner with one another. And quite frankly, our desires, our goals aren't necessarily going to translate into everybody else's. And as leaders, we have to learn what other people need and expect of us before we can put out what we need and expect of them. Our customs agent taught us this very important lesson. Well, we were very slow learners, I must admit, because 11 days later, we finally walked out of our customs office with all of our bags, and we headed to the base of Mount Everest. We walked 125 miles. 11 of those 21 days, we walked through blood-sucking, leech-infested forests. Now, this is a leech, and I know you can't really see my fingers here, but leeches are anywhere between 1/4 to 2 inches long, and they move back and forth very slowly. They have sticky skin, and they just hang out on the leaves alongside the trail, and they wait for some unsuspecting, warm-blooded creature to walk by. And you brush up against them, and they glom right onto you. But they're not content with wherever they land. They like our warm, moist parts, like under our armpits, on down in between our toes. But they don't hurt us. They just suck our blood. And then when they're satiated, they will drop off. But they do leave us bleeding. Do you feel like you have leeches in your lives? These are the people and the things that can suck us dry, especially now. How many of you hear people say all the time, you know, you're never going to, why are you doing what you're doing? You know, there's no money left. You know, you might as well give that up, move on to something else. It's never going to happen. Yet negative people. Those are leeches. But you know what? There's nothing we're going to do with those leeches. They're not the problem. How we act and react, that's the problem. This is one reason why we have to know exactly where we're headed, why each and every one of us in this room need to know exactly what we need to achieve in this role that we have now, in this life that we have chosen for ourselves. If you don't know where you're headed, if you don't know what your through line is, those leeches are going to suck you down to their level every time. What is it that you want to achieve? What is your purpose at this moment and in the next year and the next 5 years? You've got to absolutely be critically, you've got to know where you're going. But you know what? I don't think other people are the biggest leech. I think it's really ourselves. How many of you doubt yourself? I do at times. That is the biggest leech of all. When we doubt ourselves, that sucks our creativity, our energy faster than anything else. And that's one reason why we need to surround ourselves with people who support what we do in our lives. And I want to just very quickly talk about I'm sorry I had that up for so long. My husband, David. I would not be able to be here today if it were not for my husband, David. He's an incredible person. He is not a climber. as a matter of fact, he thinks climbing is way too risky. This is what he does. Can we go ahead and have the photos back? Okay? All relative. So he just doesn't climb, and one day, oh, you know what, I need to mention this because I know some of you are thinking, oh, you know, she's a mom. She just told us she was a mom a little bit ago. She's still climbing. I do not climb big, dangerous mountains anymore. So I'm real clear that my job right now is not for myself to go out and do my own thing. I have 2 young sons. It is their time now, my responsibility to help them develop into kind, caring adult men. So that's what I'm doing now. So when I'm talking about these mountains, please understand it was before children. Now I climb only for charity. So the last mountain I was on before we had children was K2. It's the world's 2nd highest mountain. It's also the most dangerous mountain in the world to climb. Of course, when I was thinking about climbing this mountain, I wanted to lead this expedition. I thought, well, I better talk to my husband because David and I are partners in this world. So I worked up the energy and courage to approach him, and I looked at him one morning. He was reading the paper. He set it down, and I said, honey, with my best smile, I would like to lead a climb to K2. I want to know what you think about that. He said nothing. What did I do? I'm in my own head, and I'm going, he doesn't want me to climb, we're going to have an argument. How many of you do that? You ask a question, people don't answer right away, you're already answering it. You're already coming up with your own conclusion. You got to stop it. He said to me, finally, he said, Stacy, if you need to climb K2, I am here 100%. Isn't that the kind of support we all need in our lives to do the very important work that we do in helping our clients and helping our communities? Who is your support system? And likewise, who do you support? After 21 days, we arrived at the base of Mount Everest. It's our corporate headquarters. If a storm moves in on the mountain, we can always come back down to the safety of base camp. Yet it's an incredibly eerie place. It's on a glacier. It creaks and it moans. But we can always come down to the safety of base camp. Avalanches, every 15 or 20 minutes, we'd hear an explosion, boom, just like a bomb going off, and then a rumble, boo, as some avalanche came down some surrounding peaks. But again, it's our safety zone. We hired 26 climbing Sherpas who met us at base camp. They're all Buddhist in religion. The most important thing you can do in their culture is to have a puja ceremony, a Buddhist blessing ceremony. They invited the Americans to participate with them. We built, we hung up prayer flags, we built an altar, we gave offerings to the gods, and during the ceremony our Sherpas chanted for about 2.5 hours, and then we were instructed to throw sampa, which is barley flour, into the air and then smear it on our face and our hair. White hair means long life. Now, I am not Buddhist in religion, but this did signify a very important thing, several things actually. First of all, it was an incredible way for our Sherpas to communicate something that was critically important to them, to their culture. Because we were invited to share this with them, it began to build the bonds of trust and respect that we would need in order to climb the mountain together. It gave us an opportunity to celebrate a small success. How many of you celebrate your daily successes? You know, we celebrate the big things, but sometimes we forget to celebrate the small things. And it's those small things that give us the momentum to continue doing what we're doing day after day after day. They need to be recognized and celebrated. Now we're ready to begin the climb. The first 2,000 feet of climbing is the Khumbu Icefall. It's called the Mouth of Death. For every 10 people who goes in, 1 person will not come back down alive. It's a glacier. Glaciers flow similar to rivers. At this point, the glacier drops for about 2,000 feet, just like a waterfall would drop. It continually moves down the mountain about 4 feet a day. Because it's constantly moving, it's constantly changing. Huge ice towers develop, huge slots in the ground called crevasses open up. because it's constantly moving. Again, it's constantly changing. And I don't know if you can see, there are actually, I don't have a laser, but there are climbers in that picture, those little black dots on the left-hand side of the photograph. Those are people. There's no way around the Khumbu Icefall. We had to go directly through it. So obviously we couldn't completely eliminate the risk, but we could reduce it by coming up with a sound strategy. We climbed at night when things were still frozen. The sun on this climb is our enemy. By the time the sun comes up, we had to be out of the icefall back down to base camp. We broke our team into rotations. We would go into the icefall with 8 people on any given day. We would we would anchor ropes into the snow and ice in case we slip and fall, the ropes are going to catch us. We also brought aluminum ladders with us so that we could link them together to hoist them over the crevasses. And then we also leaned them up those giant ice towers that we had to climb up and over. And the reason I'm showing you this is for several things. First of all, you gotta want it. Isn't it true that if you don't believe in what you're doing, you're not going to succeed? If you don't believe in what you're doing, you're not going to take the risk in order to get there. So you got to want it, and you've got to believe in it. And each and every one of you has to believe at a gut level that you absolutely can make it happen, just like we as climbers believe that we are going to make it to the top of Mount Everest. We also put our ladders over the crevasses so that we can walk across them. And I'd like to digress and have you follow me across this particular ladder span. Well, first of all, I'll tell you that my teammates had a plan on how we were going to get this ladder span across. And because I happen to be very small, they said, well, we'll put Stacy on the edge of the ladder, and then we'll just scooch her over. I'm not that blonde. So what we did was we climbed down into the crevasse, we climbed out the other side of the crevasse, and we pulled it across. My first time going across this ladder span, I remember looking up at one of those huge ice towers perched on the right-hand side, 10-ton ice block perched ready to fall and squish me before I even knew it. So I'm thinking, oh my God, please don't fall, please don't fall. Okay, whew. I'm going to get myself ready, and I'm starting to walk across the ladder. And then I tripped. I tripped on my crampons as I was crossing this ladder span. I gained my composure again, my heart's pounding away, and I'm thinking, okay, okay, keep walking, don't look down. I was telling myself, don't look down. Whatever you do, don't look down. Oh my gosh, what is it about human beings when we know we're not supposed to do something? We're just drawn right down to it. 100 feet below me, the bottom of the crevasse. Oh my God, don't look down, don't look down. What are you doing looking down? Oh my gosh. I get out to the middle of the ladder span and it started to go like this. Men don't do that. And I thought to myself, I don't have to do this. I don't have to do this. I don't have to do this. I'm going to turn around. I don't have to do this. So I turned around, looked at my teammates. They were waiting very patiently for me. When I turned around, though, I did not give them that frightful look. I turned around, I shot them that smile of confidence. Because don't we, as leaders, just have to fake it at times? And then I turned myself around, and I thought, oh my gosh, I can't possibly turn around, because my teammates couldn't do their job until I had done mine. And quite frankly, I don't know how I made it to the end of that ladder span, but somehow I did. Sometimes the big picture is too overwhelming. The work doesn't get done in the big picture. We have to narrow the picture down to complete our task at hand. We have to know what the big picture looks like, but if we get stuck in that big picture, we won't accomplish anything because there's too many distractions, too many things going on. We always have to narrow it down, complete the task at hand, get to the other end of that ladder, and then open up again. And isn't it also true that we have to let the things we cannot control go? Don't worry about them. They're going to suck your energy just like the leeches. Focus on the things that you have control over. That's how we get to the other end of our ladder spans. Go ahead, let's go back to let me go back here. 7 days we've been working in the icefall, going up and down, climbing, fixing our ropes and ladders, 7 days of working very well as a team. On the 7th day, Don Goodman came back down to base camp and he said, we've got to move our route. And we looked at him and we said, what are you talking about? We need to move our route. It's too close to the west shoulder. Well, we all knew that the west shoulder presented major avalanches. He was so adamant about moving the route that we sat down, we discussed it for 3 or 4 hours, quite frankly. Should we move it? You have such a short window of opportunity in order to reach the top of Mount Everest. All of us, except Don, thought that we could not afford to completely take everything out. We would miss that opportunity. So finally, Don said, okay, I don't agree, but I will go along with the group's decision. 3 days later, I was at base camp. I was having a rest day. I was in my tent. 6 o'clock in the morning, I was sipping a cup of hot tea, reminiscing about how well we were doing, the fact that nobody had gotten hurt, we were moving up the mountain quickly. And I'm sure that somewhere in the back of my mind, I heard that explosion, but it didn't register. And then all of a sudden, it got louder and louder. And that's when I jumped out of my tent. All of us at base camp were staring in horror as this avalanche swept down the west shoulder of Everest. We had 8 people working in the icefall that morning, and there was nothing we could do to help our teammates. And then it was just silent. After about 10 minutes, Don Goodman called down from the icefall and he said, everyone is alive, but we need help getting down. Don Goodman and one of our Sherpas were swept 30 feet into a crevasse. They were pretty beat up. Don broke his finger. The reason I tell this story, though, is how Don handled the situation. How many times when things don't go our way, when challenges present themselves, when mistakes are made, we point a finger. We always want to blame someone else, something else. The economy, this, that, the other thing. That's not what Don did. When he got down to base camp, he began to strategize on what we were going to do, where we were going to move our route. You see, if he had blamed any of us for the mistake, it would have caused our team to be very defensive. Blaming does not move us forward. Solutions move us forward. Don didn't say, okay, your way didn't work, now we're going to do my way. He brought us all together. We all came together as a team to find that solution together. The next day we went in, we moved our route to a safer location and headed up the mountain. And you all know what these are, and I bet you're a little tired of seeing these. Snowflakes, snow crystals, they're incredibly fragile, incredibly fragile. You blow on one, it disappears. You touch one with your bare hand, it'll just disappear. Yet it's amazing how powerful they are when they stick together. And I would like to say, as human beings, as organizations, well, as human beings, by ourselves, we don't yield a lot of power. It's when we come together as an organization, that's when we truly have a lot of power. And that is one of the reasons why it is so critically important that you form alliances with people in this room, with organizations in this room, with government entities, private entities, because together, that's when we can truly make change. And for goodness sakes, if you can go to your legislature, go. Together, in an organization, together. That's how we make change, and that's how we make change on a mountain. So what do you think this guy's chances are of making it to the top? Pretty small. Again, if you look around this room, at the people in this room, you have a lot of resources that are available. Not only to the individual members in the group, you've got sponsors who have an incredible amount of knowledge. Together, we use one another so we can make it to the top of the mountain. This person's not going to make it up there. You can't shoulder the weight alone. Working together, it lifts the load. And we got to have fun. We brought 125 pink plastic garden flamingos with us. They dotted our route all the way up the mountain. What do you do that makes you smile every day? So after 21 days of climbing, setting up intermediate camps on the mountain, we were ready to try for the top. It's been a team effort up to 26,000 feet. It'll be an individual effort above that. The team can only take you so far, and in the end, it boils down to what you're willing to give yourself. I was on the first summit team with 2 other Americans and 3 Sherpas. This time, we started our climb to the top at midnight. And once again, I found myself counting my steps, 1, 2, 49, 50, pausing, looking out, looking up at the peak. This time it was glistening in the moonlight, thinking that nothing can stop us. Not this time, nothing can stop us. And then at one point, I turned around again, and my heart fell to my feet, because what I saw was 2 of our Sherpas very far below us. They turned around. They took 2 extra oxygen bottles that we would need in order for all of us to make it to the top. Couldn't believe this was happening. We didn't talk about it. Well, actually, we said a few 4-letter words, but we didn't talk about it. We continued climbing up the mountain like we didn't have a care in the world. We climbed up to 28,000 feet, and all of a sudden, it was like, okay, we've got 1 extra oxygen bottle. We have 4 people. What are we going to do? Jim Fresh, who was the expedition leader, said, let's turn around. We'll try again tomorrow. Steve and I looked at one another. We said, no way. Someone's got to try to make it to the top. So Jim said, all right, we'll choose. He was looking directly at me. My heart started to pound away. There was one thing I knew, and I was real clear about. I didn't want to be chosen just because I was a woman. I wanted to earn the right to stand on top of Everest. And so the only thing I could think to say was, let's draw straws. So we had the world's highest lottery here. Pasang, our one remaining Sherpa, held the determining number. Steve chose 8, I chose 4, Jim chose 6. The winning number was 3. I was closest, and I got that bottle. I turned around, I looked up at the peak of Everest, and then I turned back at Steve and Jim and Pasang. They all 3 had a decision to make. They could climb to the top with me, or they could turn around and play it safe. Steve and Jim decided it was not worth the risk. Pasang, however, decided it was. And I have come to believe that no matter what our goals are in this life, it boils down to what we're willing to risk. And I'm not talking about physical risk. I'm talking about risk in time and energy and resources. I'm talking about emotional risk, risking our reputations. What is it that you're willing to risk now, to do things differently in order to be successful in the next month, next 2 months, next year? What are you willing to risk? And I've also come to believe that no matter what our goals are in this life, sometimes we have to walk away from everything that has meant security to us in order to reach those goals. The 4 of us said our goodbyes. Steve and Jim turned around. Pasang and I headed up the mountain. At this point here, the wind started to gust so hard it blew my hat off my head. I watched it hover and then drop 8,000 feet. Didn't go after it, but I hesitated. And then I could see the top, and it looked so close to me. And once again, that magnet just pulling me closer and closer. And then all of a sudden, I got to a point where I realized that I couldn't go any further, and that's when I knew I was standing on top. I felt this incredible swell of emotion rise inside me. I turned around. I wanted to hug somebody. I wanted to feel that success. I wanted to see our success reflected in someone else's eyes. But when I turned around, there was nobody there for me to hug. Another big lesson. Sometimes in our greatest moments of glory, we're by ourselves. And that's when we have to know that what we're doing isn't for the external accolades. It's because we believe it is the right thing at the right time for us. 15 minutes later, Pasang made it to the top, and his joy was a joy for me to watch. It was also his first time on the top of Everest. Now you think, whew, you made it to the top, you can get back and relax. Well, we have 35 corporate banners we had to photograph. When you make it to the top, it's the most vulnerable place to be. And you all know that. Every time you reach a goal, you can't rest on your laurels. Our goals, once we reach them, what they're good for is, and standing on top, it's good for looking out at new opportunities for growth and development. But we always have to come back down, set new goals, try another mountain. And in closing, let's face it, the world is not changed by people standing on mountaintops. The world is changed by the work you do when you leave this conference. That's what changes the world. You have an incredible responsibility, and I wish each and every one of you the very, very best as you move on from this conference with the knowledge, the new knowledge that you have, the new skills that you have, in order to make a difference in the lives of your clients, in the lives of your community, and in the lives of the people in this state. Thank you so much for having me, and my very best to all of you. Thank you. Oh, thank you very much. It's you.
Thank you, Stacy. That concludes our lunch. The session started at 1:15. I was asked to let you know there are a few slots still open in the poverty simulation this afternoon. You have a little bit of time for networking and partnerships and maybe climb a couple of mountains. And Stacy will be available in the exhibit hall to sign books. Thank you.